When I became president, I thought about how we lacked convening spaces for the university as a whole and places where people could come together and exchange ideas and learn from one another as they should in a residential university setting. And as I appointed a task force on common spaces, the financial crisis emerged almost at the same time. And so some of the grandiose designs that the task force was envisioning were somewhat scaled down, and we began to think, what could we do right away that could make a difference without having to have a huge investment of resources? And so the task force made a recommendation that I think has changed Harvard fundamentally. They pointed out that in old Harvard Yard, people raced through. They always felt they ought to be going somewhere, and they ought to look like they needed to be going somewhere and had something of importance to accomplish, rather than to linger or have a conversation or find a place in which to interact. And in fact, there were no benches or places to sit in Harvard Yard. And so the task force recommended that we install chairs in Harvard Yard. They're chairs of the sort that you find in the Garden of the Tuileries in Paris, though we have them in multicolors rather than just pale green. And so the chairs appeared, and I've had such a wonderful time over the last decade or so since they did appear, watching how people use them. They pull them together. They put their feet on one and their laptops on their knees. They bring their babies and rock them in their strollers next to the little grouping of chairs where the mothers are having a conversation. Students sit down and someone just comes up and sits down next to them, and a new friendship is born. So it's changed the attitude, I think, of people towards the yard, because it makes possible the opportunity to sit, to stay, to linger, to talk, to think, to have a meeting. And so they have taken an old space, the yard, a beautiful, iconic space, and remade it in a way that is both respectful of its past and embodies the spirit of the present, and some important uses for the creation of connections and interactions among our students, faculty, staff, and friends.